largest proven oil reserves in the world, Venezuela is spiraling into a deep economic crisis and a potential political revolution. Joining me on Unscripted today is my friend Winston Peraza, Venezuelan born, and you've been in the U.S. for about 20 plus years.
25 years, yeah.
What drew me to want to interview you were your Facebook pictures. You kept posting these pictures that were heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, powerful, and scary. Tell me, what's the significance of these photos?
Well, the biggest significance is that it's a very effective way of getting the word out. I mean, the media has been, for the most part, silenced about the situation in Venezuela, and what we have left as Venezuelans spread all over the world is social media. So there's a lot of people that are kind of in the trenches, on the streets, every day, trying to get, fighting this the corrupt government that we have, and these images are a very powerful way of telling that story and getting the word out.
How is it possible that a country so rich in natural resources has devastatingly long food lines? What's going on in Venezuela right now?
Well, what's going on today is the result of a process that started about 18 years ago when Hugo Chavez came into power. You mix an ideology that is perhaps failed and obsolete, like in their case socialism or Cuban-style socialism. So the government fell into the hands of people that were quite inept and that were trying to do things that just didn't work financially. So if you deplete the production apparatus, the production, industrial production of the country, then you start turning a country that used to produce a lot of goods into a country that has to import a lot of goods. And then, back in those days when the price of oil was over $100 a barrel, it was okay for the government to spend all that money importing stuff and selling it at regulated prices to the people. That's sheer populism. So it's an artificial thing because people are paying artificial prices that were subsidized by the government. Price of oil came down to about $45 per barrel, and the money ran out. So now people say, well, where is my free stuff? Where's my free refrigerator, my free food? It's all gone. So all that money, instead of being invested in infrastructure and education and the progress of the country, was basically being spent with no ROI at all. So.
And then inflation. The Wall Street Journal predicts 700%.
Yes.
It's going to pass that. I mean, how can people live with inflation that high?
Well, you can't. I mean, you survive. I'll tell you an example. My father worked for the Venezuelan oil company for 35 years, and when he retired, he had a pension. That pension went from about $8,000 a month to about $50 a month. That's how much it's worth today. Oh. So a lot of people that are retired or whatever basically lost all their money because of inflation, because of the exchange rate.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the government to get clear, because I don't think our news organizations here cover it that often, and I don't know exactly how truthful their reporting and journalism is. So, I mean, we go from Hugo Chavez now into Nicolas Maduro. What is Maduro like? Is he turned this into a dictatorship?
I think that everybody says that he's more of a puppet of the people that are really in power. So I'm not sure what Hugo Chavez's intentions were when he actually designated in this infamous letter that he apparently signed in Havana, Cuba, when he was in his deathbed, that he wanted Nicolas Maduro to be his successor. I think that the people that are in power really are just kind of letting him take the blame, letting him be the face of this mess, because when he falls, it's going to be probably a vacuum. It's going to create a void where other people can easily take power that are much more ruthless, much more...
Which we've seen with the Arab Spring.
So, yes.
Well, can the people force him to step down? Is that possible? Is there going to be a revolution?
There is a revolution.
It already is a revolution, you say. This is it. It's happening.
And I don't like that word because that's their word. But there is a shift, a mind change, and I think people are fed up. And this is not going to stop until the government changes. Now, what's coming after is hard to predict. What I see is the biggest and most blatant, in broad daylight, theft in history. These people just basically stole trillions of dollars,
a country,
18 years of our times, and that's really the most significant, I think, harm. It's not about the money that they stole; it's about the time that they stole. There are a lot of kids that basically haven't had to spend their entire lives fighting against this government instead of studying, instead of pursuing their own personal dreams, instead of setting up businesses, innovating, etc. They're just having to spend their days in the street fighting against the National Guard.
So what can we right here in Oklahoma do?
Well, I think raise awareness, which I greatly appreciate you for doing this. I think that understanding that these are not isolated events. This is all these events are interconnected. This is the worldwide geopolitical game. When you have a country that is just 3.5 hours south of Miami that is basically being overtaken by China and by Russia, you also have a country that has one of the largest oil reserves in the world, and it's against the U.S. interests, or at least it compromises U.S. interests, and to the extent that you say, hey, I better pay attention to this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this all should be about oil, but I think that geopolitically, all these things have connections. Oklahoma has, and I think still has, some ties to Venezuela through the oil business. Cinco used to be here. There's a lot of petroleum engineers that still live here. A lot of petroleum companies are still doing business here. So that all that impact that's happening has to be impacting their own business. So from that standpoint, understanding their geopolitical situation in Venezuela may at least give them better intelligence to make better decisions on the business side of things.
How do everyday families live in Venezuela right now? What's the situation like on the ground?
Well, I don't have a first-hand account of that. All I have is the stories that I get from my friends and relatives that are there. I can tell you that Venezuelans are luckily very loving, very social people.
Yes, they are.
Family is important, collaboration is important, so people really are helping each other out. Venezuelans have been marching in the street for about 45 days now, non-stop. Every day you have the retired people, the retirement community, the musicians, the students, the moms just march for Mother's Day, the clergy, everybody's marching in the street just to show that this is not an armed revolution. We're not trying to oust the government. We just are sick of this government, and all we want is to have a better future.
Ojalá.
Ojalá.
Thank you, Winston, so much for sharing your wisdom, your perspective about your beautiful country, Venezuela.
It is a beautiful country.
It is.
I hope we get back soon.
Bye. Thank you guys for watching Unscripted.